Hey guys, how's it going? Today I'm going to do a guide for Necro progression, and I'm just going to discuss units that are relatively easy to obtain depending on what Nat 4s you have, and just looking at some teams that I can show. Other teams, other units I won't be able to show because I don't have them built properly, but I can discuss some stuff with you. And to start with, the first thing I want to talk about is the leader skill for the dungeon for Necro. Now, personally, I think the best leader skill is the 9 tails, or because they're good to build around because it's increased attack power of a elemental attribute depending on which attribute you're using, and the 9 tails themselves have multi-hits now. So the fire one, for example, she has a triple hit on the first skill, which is really strong, and she also has a multi-hit on the last skill 5 times, even better. The second skill, it does not have a multi-hit, but it doesn't. She doesn't use it on the boss because they've changed the AI a couple months ago, so that she only uses this if the unit is not immune to it. So bosses are immune to sleep, so she won't use it against the boss. But she will use it against, in trash waves, and also against the stolen soul that the boss takes. So I think, for me personally, I think Shiwa is the best 9 tails to build around, and I think she's not a monster that you would never expect to get. Like some of the units that are really hard to get are basically the really top tier units, Chasun, Galleon, etc. 9 tails does not really fall into that category. I think it's pretty reasonable that I think a lot of people these days would have a 9 tails, but now if you're sort of still new and starting out, there are other options available, such as the Wind 9 tails, which is a fusible monster. I'll probably discuss her a bit later in the video, but for me, I built it around, well when I progressed for Necro, I built my team around her. So because increasing attack power makes it so that when you're starting out, you can sort of dedicate maybe a rune towards HP. So you can run like slot 6 HP or slot 2 HP, and then attack and crit damage in the other 2 slots, and that way they have enough survivability to go through the dungeon, because you probably won't have really strong glory point buildings yet. Obviously, glory point buildings will help you with your rune requirements, but if you don't have something like that, then you can rune it towards one HP rune, and then make up for the lost damage with the extra attack power. Then eventually, when you are ready to progress to a speed run, you can drop the HP rune, add more attack, and as long as you can still survive, then your team will be doing more damage, right? So I think she's a good starting point. An alternative is, if you don't have her and you're fortunate enough to have a fire jack-o'-lantern instead, Smokey, then he is also another option. Now he's carrying spare runes for me, so he's not going to be very optimal for me. So I can't really show him in the run, but he works just as well. And reason being, he's also got a triple hit on his first skill, and what's even better about his first skill is that it also slows the attack speed. I'll get into the debuffs a bit later, but the short story is all the debuffs help a lot with surviving the boss. Okay. Now the second skill also has a multi-hit, and the third skill also has a multi-hit, even though it's only 2 times, but basically all his abilities have a multi-hit. Now, compared to Shiwa, Smokey, on the other hand, has a HP leader for dungeons. So if you're running a Smokey leader, then you can, you don't have to stack as much HP on your units, and therefore you can focus more towards attack power substats and just increasing your damage instead. So this helps with your units surviving through the trash waves, which is generally what's gonna make or break your run. Especially the mini boss, the Grego, he hits really hard, especially when you're autopiloting. Your units, you won't really, unless you're targeting the boss each time. More than likely, they're gonna kill. Your units will kill the golems that are beside him, and he gets stronger when his allies die. So if you kill the 2 golems, then he's gonna hit really hard. So having a decent amount of HP on your units helps a lot when you're starting out. Later on, when you have a speed run, you probably don't need as much HP. But obviously you have to tune it towards the runes and your building progression as depending on your own situation. This is going to be very different for everyone. Okay, so those are 2 of the, I think, the better leaders if you can obtain them to begin with. There are definitely many other options, right? But a lot of those options are more geared towards speed runs. For example, some people these days are running Lucian or Zyros lead, and that's for universal attack power. But that, as I said, that's more for progression wise. Oh, sorry, speed runs. Right. So when you're starting out, you want to focus more on surviving first. Make sure your runs are consistent, and then you work on trying to cut down on your time. Now, not everyone will have a light Rakshasa like I do, but most of the Rakshasas will serve a similar purpose. Doesn't matter which color it is, except I would advise against the water one because she's got multiple abilities rather than a passive, and that means she's less reliable to slow, because she has, she won't necessarily use her first skill as often as, say, Pang, which is the light one. She's got a passive, so she only has 2 abilities, right? So more than often than not, she's going to be using her first ability. The same idea with Hua and Yen. Okay, so now I can't use my Hua in this run because she's not built towards Necro. So usually I would recommend try to build 1 Rakshasa for Necro. Okay, it doesn't matter which one. Typically people will build either Hua or Yen. Yen is the wind one. Okay, now, and obviously the reason to run them is because of the slow on the first skill. Okay, and due to the boss mechanics, right? So he's got this this shield. It's a 7-hit shield that you have to break each time he moves. So each time he moves, he'll refresh this this barrier, right? And then you have to hit him 7 times again before any damage can go through. And same for debuffs. The shield will block debuffs too. So it's very important to have multi-hits. That's why I was mentioning, the Shiwa and Smokey having multi-hits is very important for a run. Now, after you have ensured that you have enough multi-hit to bring the shield down, you want to land debuffs on him, and the most important one, in my opinion, is slow. Right? That's why the Rakshasa is so important. If you don't have a Rakshasa, then any other unit with a reliable slow would work. So the Jack-o'-lanterns come to mind, and also the Liches. So we recently had the Water Lich HOH. If you farm that one, he can be used as in Necro. The alternative is to use Fuko. A lot of people use Fuko, which is the Wind Lich. He can also do a similar thing. Now, some of these units I'll discuss more in the monster section when I get to it, and I'll just go through the abilities real quick if I can. Now, now the reason why slow is the most important is because, you know, if the boss has his speed reduced, it buys you more time in the subsequent turns to break the shield again, and then therefore there'll be a larger window for your units to deal damage to the boss. Okay. Now, just to discuss like these other units that I have in the team, Adrian. You probably heard about Adrian a fair bit. Ever since he got spoiled, I think a lot of people sort of rushed towards him because his skill kit fits Necro pretty well. Now, his first ability is a 2-hit ability, and then he will fire a third shot if he has good critical rate. I believe if he's max crit rate, he'll fire the third shot guaranteed. So basically, as long as he crits, then he'll do 3 hits. And I believe on Awakening, he gets an additional effect on his strafe, which is the last part here, 30% chance to disturb the HP recovery by 1 turn. And that's a nice bonus to have, but it's not the main reason you're using him. The main reason using him is to break the shield. So that's why a lot of people usually will pick him to start with, because he's a nat 3, he's easy to obtain, and he's also got another multi-hit on his second skill, 4 hits, and it also does continuous damage. Now, continuous damage does work on the boss, as obviously you have to break the shield to apply the continuous damage. But when he takes his turn, he will take the damage from the dots, and then the shield will go up after that. Okay, so continuous damage is quite nice for the boss. Now, the third ability, this ability is not the greatest because if he's buffing his team, then he's not breaking the shield at the same time. But it is nice because it provides attack speed, which does work on the boss, because like the boss will cap your normal speeds, but the bonus that you get from attack speed buff will still apply, right? So you will gain a lot more turns. So this combined with attack speed slow should give you quite a number of turns. And but obviously the downside is that he's not using his turn, or his first turn, if he buffs on turn 1, to break the shield, and that can affect your chances of landing the slow debuff later on. So for that reason, I would normally rune him violent. That way he has a chance to attack again and use his first skill after he buffs. Obviously it's not reliable, but it's better than no chance at all. Now, obviously for my one, I haven't really used Adrian for a while, so he's going to be carrying spare runes, but I did try a run and it seemed to work okay with him, so hopefully it will work again. Now, Colleen here. I discussed Colleen in a previous video. You can probably check out that one for more detailed information, but just to summarize, you want Colleen to be the fastest monster on your team, preferably as fast as possible. She'll attack first with her 2-hit ability. She will buff as well sometimes because she uses her heal as a buff. Alright, so she could do this turn 1, which is quite annoying because she's not helping to break the shield again, and also because she kind of wastes it, and the boss will hit you at least once or twice before it will come back on off cooldown, unless she violent procs. So it can be a bit annoying, especially when you're starting out and you're kind of, I guess you're trying to rely on her heals to keep you up. But yeah, she's great because her kit is heals, attack buff, and multi-hits, right? So she's got a lot in her kit, and she wants to be violent revenge. She can solo heal, alright, but she needs to be pretty fast for that. From memory, when I pulled off my second healer and made Colleen a solo healer, I believe my Colleen was about 180 speed at the time, maybe a little bit faster. Okay, and finally here, the Bella. Now, I usually recommend Colleen plus Bella as a starting healing kit because it's not necessarily that easy to make Colleen your solo healer straight away, unless you have really good runes that you can spare her. Okay, so to be on the safe side, I think having Bella and Colleen at the same time will make it much safer. And this, it's also nice in that Bella also has a reliable armor break, which is very important for the run. Right, so if you're not running Bella, to speed up the run, you probably want to have another unit that has a reliable armor break, such as Galleon. For when I first sped up my run, I took out Bella and replaced it with Galleon. Now, just keep in mind the heal, it doesn't recover attack bar because the boss blocks that ability, but the heal, I mean, you still get healing from it, and that's the main reason you're bringing her. So even if you feel that the attack bar boost is wasted, it doesn't really matter. Alright, so the main reason you're bringing the Bella, there's 3 reasons actually. First reason is reliable armor break. Second reason is like an additional heal. It's also important to note that this is a smart heal, so it'll make it a lot safer. Like, you know, if Colleen is buffing with her heal, right, then at least you have Bella's heal to fall back on if your team is starting to get low. Now I'm just starting this run to show you how this team goes. Even though my Adrian is not optimally runed, this is not my usual team, but I'm trying to show the closest thing that I have to free to play. Alright, obviously there's 2 nat 4s which are not reliable to get, but as I said, there are alternatives to them. Okay, so these crystals will stun a lot, so it is reliable. It makes it more reliable if you have every unit on your team on Violent. That way they can at least proc out of the stuns, especially your healers. That's the key thing. Revenge obviously is also nice for the boss, especially on your multi-hitters. So for any multi-hit unit, you probably want to make them Violent Revenge. The Rakshasa and Bella, they don't have a multi-hit on their first skill, but if you can afford to give them Revenge, like, you know, every little bit of multi-hit helps, so that every time the boss does his AoE, he'll that means all units have a chance to proc a Revenge, and that will help break the shield earlier on, and that way the rest of your team can, or you don't have to rely on your team to break the shield as much. Now the other reason to bring a light unit like Bella is to tank the mini boss, right? I've already passed it, but as long as there's the light unit there, he'll focus I believe it's his first attack on the light unit, and if your lightning unit is tanky enough, then that will help keep the pressure off your team. Because sometimes if you run a pure fire team or like a pure element team, right? Because most Necro teams are built around one element these days. If that happens, then if you don't have a light unit, right, and you have for your full element single element team, then that boss, you don't know who he's gonna hit, and he could snipe one of your damage dealer, especially because your damage dealer is probably gonna be the squishes, unit, like say your Adrian or whatever, and that will make it much harder on the boss afterwards. Now keep in mind, when you get to when you're doing this boss, make sure you do the boss battle and use the attack order on Imprisoned Soul, and then secondary is on the boss. So obviously they'll always attack the boss unless, well, that basically makes it so that they'll always attack the boss unless he steals someone, and then when he steals someone, all units will focus that Imprisoned Soul, and you know that once that unit is dead, it will come back on your side at half health, and then you continue as normal. Now for speed runs, some people will make it just target the boss and ignore the Imprisoned Soul, but for progression wise, I always recommend to kill the soul first, right? Because you can't really afford to, you typically probably won't be able to afford to lose a unit. If you lose a unit before killing the boss, it's probably going to be a wipe. Now let's do a couple more runs while I discuss a couple more things. Okay, so now I mentioned that all the debuffs are very important on the boss. Now, every single debuff works on a boss, and like they're all very useful in keeping you alive and also killing the boss at the same time. Now, in addition to speed being very important, I believe armor break is the next most important, because you want to maximize the amount of damage your units are dealing to the boss while the shield is down, and armor break, obviously is going to help a lot with that. The longer the boss is alive for, the more he's going to do his AoE, and each time he does the AoE, he gets stronger, and the longer the fight drags out, the more damage he's dealing to your team, and eventually, if you can't drop the boss before then he'll get to critical mass, and your team just won't be able to keep up. Slowly units are gonna die one by one, and that just makes it progressively harder. So you definitely want to kill the boss as soon as possible. So in addition to reducing the amount of turns he's having, you want to make sure all your turns are very efficient. Alright. Now you can see there's another debuff here, branding. That's coming from my Shiwa. That's another reason why Shiwa is very nice. Branding effect, as you know probably from raids, it adds an extra 25% damage to the target. So that combined with defense break will help kill the boss quicker. Okay. Now the other debuffs are more for survivability, but they definitely help out when you're starting out. So the first one I want to discuss is attack power debuff. Now Colleen provides that on her first skill, so and I think she's pretty much a staple for progressing through Necro. She's even better than any Nat 5 healer in my opinion for starting out. You may think Praha has a triple hit on her first hit too, but she doesn't provide any debuffs. So she does heal quite a large amount, but you have to keep in mind it's on a 4-turn cooldown as opposed to Colleen's 3-turn cooldown. And as I said, she doesn't have any debuffs to help your team out as well. And you would also need to make a violent revenge most likely if you want her to heal often enough to keep your team up during progression. So I think that's why, no matter what healers you have, I think you'd probably end up making a Colleen anyway. Now the other debuff is heal block. Heal block is very nice for progression because I believe when the boss AoEs, he'll heal some health back. And if you can block that heal, then it reduces the amount of time that it takes to kill the boss, right? So it's nice to have, and Colleen provides that, but Colleen by herself is not reliable for it. But I think it's good enough, right? It depends on how much damage your team can do. So if you feel you need an additional heal block, you can probably look at other options. Like I think Smokey might have something like heal block. He has heal block on his 3rd skill, so he can help with that too. So if you're running, say, Smokey plus instead of Shiwa on my team, that would work as well. And the other debuff is glancing hit. Not all units will have this. I guess it depends, which units you're putting into your team. So for example, Smokey does it, as you can see here, but other options are like Lisa. She's got multi-hit and glancing on her first. She's not bad for Necro. She's an option to have, and she also provides additional multi-hits with this skill too, because this will bring your units to attack the boss. And that if you're running multi-hitters like Adrian and stuff, then this is pretty much gonna knock down the shield in 1 turn. Alright, so Lisa is something you could consider too. Now I'm just gonna go through a few other units while I'm here. Okay, there's Hua-Hee. Now Hua-Hee is more for speed runs, but she is sort of similar to Colleen in that she's got a 3-turn heal once this is maxed, right? And she can heal, but the problem with Hua-Hee is she needs skill ups to get this Amuse to 3 turns, and you know, Hua-Hee is not easy to skill up because she's in that 4. Alright, but if you happen to have her built already before working on a Colleen and she's max skill, then she's definitely a unit you could use in the meantime, and then see whether you need to build Colleen or not. You probably will build Colleen for raids anyway, so try them both out for your team. They both work, it just depends on the rest of your team. I believe Hua-Hee is a bit better for speed runs, whereas Colleen's better for progression though. Especially because Hua-Hee doesn't have multi-hit on the first skill, it's only 1 hit. But she does have multi-hit on the 3rd skill, just that it's not reliable, so that's why I believe it's more for speed runs. Some other options, this Gibraltar is also a very nice multi-hitter. You probably, if you don't have, you know, Adrian, oh sorry, not Adrian, Smokey or Shiwa, then this is an alternative. His leader skill is not great for Necro, so you're probably looking towards someone else to be the leader, but he does provide a lot of multi-hits. This one doesn't tell you that it is a multi-hit, but it does multi-hit. This one is another multi-hit, blocks beneficial effects, that doesn't matter, but it is a multi-hit, so it's still good. Alright, and same with this one, multi-hit and can do continuous damage. So I haven't actually used him, but I know people who have used him and they do say he does quite a lot of damage. He's an attack based monster as well, so he can scale pretty well with attacker runes, so that's another option you can consider. Now there's the Lich. I don't think you would use the fire one. Most people would tend to use either the water one or the wind one. And the reason so because the first ability has an attack speed slow, so this is an alternative to say Hua or Smokey. And the second ability has weakened defense, which is nice to have. And then he's just got a passive here. So the main thing you're bringing the Liches for is the attack speed slow. They do like decent amount of damage as well. So even though they're like support and HP monsters, but they can be built towards being an attacker, and they will do an okay amount of damage. Now the leader skills don't work for dungeons, so you can't use them for that. But yeah, as I said, if you don't have a Rakshas handy, then you can use those. Let me see if there's anything else that is good. There are like a few units that you may have seen people use, like such as the Fire Harpy. She could be okay. I haven't really seen her in action personally, but that's something you can keep in mind too. You may have seen some of the higher ranking players use the Dark Harpy. I did try to use her and she's okay, but I think she sort of needs to be built towards a pure dark team, and the main reason is just so that she has the attack power buff for dark units. So if you have things like Fae, and then you can use say the Dark Cowgirl, and maybe the Dark Harpu, something like that. That's a way to build a dark team. And speaking of cowgirls, you can, like, another option is some people use the blue cowgirl for attack speed slow on the first skill. It also multi-hits. Now she's farmable, but it costs a lot of guild points to accumulate the scraps for cowgirls. So it really depends whether you can afford to spend the GP for that, because the other thing is you want skill ups on her, and to do that you would need to spend more guild points on additional cowgirls, assuming you even get the correct color, because it's a random one similar to Ifrit's. So I guess I would probably only really consider her if you have no other options for slowing units, and you've already gotten your 3 Ifrits. Because I think the best use of guild points is actually guild flags. Assuming you have your Ifrits already. So I would avoid using the guild points for cowgirls, but it is an option if you're desperate. And she does. I mean, another benefit is that she has a decent attack power, you know, for dungeons leader skill, and it's universal, so you know, it doesn't matter what element you're using. So that's another option there. So let me find any other additional units that are good. Some people use Orochi actually, and it's because Orochi has continuous damage, right, on his last skill, and a lot of multi-hits, so he can break this shield with this in one go. I think if you're gonna run Orochi, you probably have to build a very niche sort of team around him. So it'd probably be best if you had. I think this is probably more suited towards Pang users. I haven't really tried it personally. I have a Pang, but I have no real reason to build Orochi around that. But I have seen people use Orochi with Pang, and it's pretty nice. It does work as long as the units are lined up correctly. Now, speaking of lining up units, I know this video is going for a very long time, but I think Necro is a very long, and you know, there's a lot of explanation required for it. Now, for the actual dungeon itself, now you sorry, just let me grab energy so I can get into the dungeon. Now, the attack order is very important on the boss because, as you know, he caps the speeds, right? But you still go. I believe it's this ability. So, but your units do still move in the order of the highest attack speed to the lowest, right? Even though all the speeds are capped. Now, no one knows the exact number that the speed is capped at, but the speculation is it's around 110. Okay, so it is still important to speed sync your units, and now for a starting, like a beginner sort of progression build, your Bella and your Colleen are probably going to be the fastest units on your team, and rightly so. Like Bella, you'll probably be using it in PvP, and you've probably already using it in giants and dragons as a healer, right? And for those dungeons, he has to be as fast as possible while still being decently tanky. So most likely he's going to be move first, and then probably your Collins probably after that, and that's fine. That's a decent way to start off. So if you consider those are going to be breaking the shield, hopefully like 3 hits, right? 1 from Bella and 2 from Colleen, ideally. Then after that, you want whoever is the main shield breakers to move. So that will probably be Adrian and Shiwa in this team, right? Now, both of them have decent debuffs, right? I would say you probably would prefer Shiwa to move after Adrian because she can do a branding effect, right? Yep, this one, branding, right? And that will help you deal more damage later on. Then at the last unit should be whoever is slowing the attack speed. So if you're running Rakshasa or Lich or whatever, then they have to move last, right? That's why my Pang has basically no speed, right? I would even cut it down to 0, like +0 speed if I could, but I just don't have the runes that will allow me to get the stats I want with that. So I just have to make sure that all my other units are faster than her. That way she'll move last, and the shield should be broken for sure after that, and hopefully she'll slow the boss, right? So that's also very important to have the first skill maxed, right? That way you have the maximum chance to slow, because her application rate is only 80% at max, so she's not always going to be reliable. That also makes Yen and Hua a little bit more attractive, because Hua has an inbuilt double hit. So if she procs the double hit for her passive, actually I'll show you here. Okay, so she's got this passive. It has a 20% chance to strike again. This is not a natural Vina proc. It's basically when she does her first skill, she has a chance to hit again at the same time. So similar to, say, Rock's procs, except that she can only do one extra attack, I believe. But that means if she does proc, then she has 2 chances to slow the boss with that hit, and that makes her pretty attractive. Yen, on the other hand, gains an additional turn, I believe, with a 15% chance from memory. So, you know, if she fails, then she has an additional turn to try again, and then on top of that, she should have violent runes as well. So she has a lot of chances to reapply the buff. That's why she's quite nice to have. Well, that's why a lot of people will build her and keep their Hua built for raid instead. Now, you can also run double slow, right? So if you're running Smokey in your team instead of Shiwa, but you can also running another slow unit, so say a Rakshasa or a Lich in addition to the Smokey, that will make it even safer. Alright, so I actually recommend this, if you can, for progression, is to run two units that have slow, and make them the units that will move 4th and 5th. That way you have a lot more chances to land slow on the boss, and it will make it much more consistent. Right? As long as you can, as long as they don't both fail. Even if they both fail, it's not the end of the world. You still have time to reapply. It's just that if you can do it on the first turn, then it just makes everything else much safer after that. Now, I believe I've covered that in a fair amount of detail. This video is already going to be a lot longer than my other videos, so I'm going to leave it there. I will discuss speed runs in a separate video, and as usual, if you have any questions, if I missed anything that you want to know, then feel free to ask me in comments, and I'll answer them as soon as possible. So thanks for watching, and I hope I'll see you guys in the next video.